Again, welcome to the Munroe-Meyer Institute's Family Care Enhancement Project Information Series. Tonight's presentation is on the Family Support Waiver. Just a little bit about the Family Care Enhancement Project. We are made up of Parent Resource Coordinators, or PRCs, which means that we're parents of children with disabilities and special needs who have had training to provide that parent-to-parent support to help families get connected to different services, navigate the medical and educational system, and also access community resources. We do have parent resource coordinators who are embedded in primary care clinics that help those meet those social determinants of health, which are those non-medical needs that do impact health outcomes. We are a statewide project, which means that we have parent resource coordinators located all over the state. Just a couple housekeeping items. We will be recording this presentation. Once it's edited, it will be housed on the Munroe-Meyer Institute's YouTube page, and the link is there. I can put that in the chat also. We do have past presentations that are already on there if you'd like to go back and check those out. If you have questions for the presenters, if you could submit those through the question and answer function, we will take breaks in between different sections and get those questions answered. Also, if you would please complete the survey at the end of the presentation. It should just pop up on your screen automatically. Just a very short, like 3-question survey to make sure that we are hitting what you guys are wanting to see. And tonight's presenters, we're very happy to have Joyful and Kathy. They're both program specialists from the Department of Health and Human Services. And my name is Jennifer Hansen. If you have any questions about this presentation, if you have any follow-up that you'd like to discuss, or there's any more information that you need, feel free to email me. There's my email right there. And with that, I will hand it over.
All right. Well, my name is Joyful Stoves. I am a program specialist, as Jennifer said, with the Division of Developmental Disabilities. And I am going to get our PowerPoint pulled up and shared. Kathy, if you want to introduce yourself as well.
Hello, everyone. I am Kathy Arns, and I am also a program specialist with Home and Community-Based Services, DHHS.
All right, and just trying to get it to where I start the slideshow. All right. Well, today we are going to talk to you about the Family Support Waiver. It is our newest waiver in Nebraska. We will cover a little bit of information about just waivers in general, in case any of you are not familiar with that term, or what home and community-based waivers are. And then we'll really dive in deep on the Family Support Waiver and talk about the services that are available, how it came to be, who it provides services to. Again, that's what services are available. And then we'll talk about the offers that were being made. And Kathy will be able to tell you a little bit about how many offers we've made so far. I do know we have one person receiving waiver services at this time. So we are indeed started with this waiver now. And then we'll talk about how it looks like for that person who began services, and how it will look as other people begin services. And then also, we do have some resources on our website, and we will highlight those. So quickly, information just about waivers in general. Again, Kathy and I are from the Division of Developmental Disabilities. So we provide services, well, we oversee all the services provided through Medicaid, home and community-based service waivers in Nebraska, or HCBS waivers. There are Medicaid waivers, so we require people have Medicaid to be on the waivers. And then people also have to use services through other funding sources. So like Nebraska VR, the Department of Education is required to provide services until people turn 21. The term waiver kind of scares people sometimes, so I do want to just explain what that term means. No one wants to waive rights to anything. We all want to get everything we're entitled to. What the waiver is kind of jointly doing is it's saying that you're waiving your right to be in an institutional setting and receive care in a medical setting. It is also waiving Medicaid requirements to pay for services in that institutional type setting. So Medicaid is an insurance company. It pays for services in hospitals, doctor offices, and institutional settings. Waivers allow Medicaid funding to be paid to community providers, so outside of those medical areas. So that's really what a waiver is. And all the services you get through a waiver are things that are not medical based, and they're above and beyond what Medicaid is paying for on the medical side. So Medicaid will pay for things like dental, prescription. Waiver services will pay for things like someone to come into your home and help you with tasks in your home. The point of all of the services through waivers is really to help participants live in their community and live as independently as possible. So paid services should really wrap around the natural supports someone has. Just because you're getting waiver services doesn't mean you can't get rides places from your aunt or your uncle. People from church can help you out as they would anybody else. And really the goal is as much independence as possible again. So in Nebraska, we have 5 home and community-based service waivers. 2 of them, the aged and disabled waiver and the traumatic brain injury waiver, are based on a nursing facility level of care. So what that means is someone has the medical needs that would typically allow them to move into a nursing facility. Those 2 waivers say you don't want to live in a nursing facility, you want to live in your home, or maybe you want to live in some specialized assisted living. Medicaid can pay for those through one of those waivers. The other 3 waivers are the developmental disabilities waivers. So the family support waiver that we're really focused on tonight is one of the developmental disabilities waivers. So it has the same requirements, that same level of care as moving into an intermediate care facility. This next slide just has the developmental disabilities waivers, and it's kind of organized on how we believe most people may utilize them. So the family support waiver, you'll see again, it's what we're talking about today, so it's highlighted. But this is typically where we expect people in the future to come into our developmental disability services. So this waiver is available from ages birth to 21 years, and it's intended to help children remain in their family home. So this provides services for that child to support their family, to maintain that family home. Once someone turns 21, the Developmental Disabilities Adult Day Waiver is the waiver that people receive at age 21 when that school year has ended. This is how it currently is today. And as people in the family support waiver, it's how it will continue to be. You will transition from that family support waiver automatically into the adult day waiver at that age of 21. So it'll be a smooth transition there. The day waivers really focused on replacing what the school system has. Then the third waiver is that comprehensive waiver. So the comprehensive waiver is all ages. It does meet the needs of children as well as adults. And the main difference on that one is it has a little bit of a higher budget and includes like a 24-hour residential service for the people who need that. You see in the box, I have the word rehabilitation. All of the DD waivers in Nebraska are really focused on teaching. We believe that everybody is capable of learning. So rehabilitation is just the big, long, fancy word we use to say that we're teaching people. And that is absolutely true of the family support waiver as well. So on all 3 of those waivers, services vary. You can see that service list, what is available on what waiver. Again, the main difference is that the comprehensive waiver has that 24-hour residential. The family support waiver, you'll see that there really aren't as many day supports as school is providing that day piece. So waiver services, day supports are primarily to teach job skills that someone needs in order to become employed and to provide support at a job. Again, since the family support waiver is primarily intended to keep children at home, you don't really see day services as much on this waiver. Residential services are focused on independent living skills, and residential services are provided wherever a person happens to live. So if you're on that comprehensive waiver and you're getting residential services, it can occur in your participant's home, like you live on your own. It can be your family home. It can be a provider-operated home. Again, on the family support waiver, one of the requirements and one of the purposes of it is that it's keeping the family together. So those residential services will really be provided in that child's family home on the family support waiver. So now we'll actually dive into the family support waiver. So in 2022, Nebraska legislature passed a bill declaring that we needed to do more to help children with developmental disabilities remain in their family's home. The way the family support waiver was written was that it would serve up to 850 children with developmental disabilities. Again, it's children living in their family homes, and each child is provided with an annual budget of $10,000. So on our other developmental disabilities waivers, we do have different funding amounts based on people's needs. The family support waiver just has $100,000 for, or sorry, $10,000 for everybody. I think everybody would wish it was 100,000, right? Sorry, $10,000 for the family support waiver, which is significantly less than the other developmental disabilities waivers. But this again was how the bill was written. So our division drafted the family support waiver within the parameters of how the bill was written and then how the law was subsequently written. We submitted it to Medicaid for approval last October, and we received the approval from federal Medicaid on March 1st. And March 1st is when we officially began offering the family support waiver. So to be eligible to receive this family support waiver, for any of those 5 waivers, the age and disabled, traumatic brain, developmental disabilities, any of those, you have to be a citizen or a legal resident of the United States. You have to be a legal resident of Nebraska. You have to be eligible for and receive Nebraska Medicaid. You have to meet the level of care requirements, and then you have to have a need for waiver services. One point on here, in the little pop-out box again, is that when we are able to make a waiver offer to someone, regardless of parental income, that child can then get Medicaid if they meet the other Medicaid requirements. So again, the family support waiver is a developmental disability waiver, so it has the same eligibility requirements as the other developmental disability waivers. The first piece of that is really that you have that diagnosis. The diagnosis has to occur before the age of 22. Obviously, the family support waiver, you're under the age of 22 because it's a waiver birth to 21. But that diagnosis has to come from either a medical doctor or a psychologist who is diagnosing an intellectual disability. The second piece to have a developmental disability, and this is a Nebraska definition, is that you have to have substantial limitations in 3 areas. So conceptual, social, and practical. We do have eligibility information on our website for diagnosing psychologists, as well as for school psychologists. So if someone is looking at needing to apply for a child, they can certainly go on our website and print information to diagnosing or school psychologists to provide them information on what testing we prefer to look at to determine those limitations. Once someone is determined that they have that developmental disability, then we have to see if they meet the level of care. So currently in Nebraska, and this is one of the things we are looking at possibly changing here in the near future, we use a level of care that is homegrown. It's called a developmental index, and it is an assessment that looks at self-care, expressive language, self-direction, mobility, learning. While it has those 6 areas, you'll see that they kind of overlap some of the limitations in the conceptual, social, and practical, right? So most people who meet the limitations of having a developmental disability are going to meet that level of care. Not all, but most. So if somebody meets those requirements, they meet level of care, the family support waiver. You know what? I'm going to pause before we go into the services. So I don't know if you've gotten any questions in the chat, Jen. I know I can't see the chat.
Yes, the first one is the state review team under the Medicaid division or the Division of Developmental Disabilities?
Kathy, I'm going to let you feel this. I believe it's Medicaid, but I'm going to let you work with them a lot more than I do.
Yeah, sure. Excuse me. The state review team is part of Medicaid. So when I get a offer accepted for a minor that the family does not meet Medicaid requirements due to being over income, I send my request actually to my contact in Medicaid, who then forwards it to the state review team to do their analysis.
Thank you. That was our only question so far.
And Kathy, do you have anything else you want to mention about the eligibility or?
Yeah, so when I request this SRT, what they're doing is they are actually looking at what Social Security will look at to determine a person disabled. So they're not going to be looking at if you need a Social Security income, that type of thing. What we're asking them to do is look at Social Security requirements to determine if the individual is disabled. If the individual comes back and they tell us, yes, they meet SRT, oftentimes they will give them an SRT for a term of 12 to 18 months, often it depends upon the age of the child or the minor. So then once that is done, they will open a Medicaid case solely for that individual. And that individual will receive full Medicaid. They can use it for other things that you could normally use Medicaid for. But one important thing to remember that I always tell my families is if you should choose to terminate, like your family support waiver, that Medicaid is going to terminate as well for that child, because the only reason it is open and active is because they have accepted that family support waiver. We have asked Medicaid to determine a disability and open a Medicaid case for that individual so that they could receive those waiver services from us.
We did have one more question come in. How often does the state review team meet or review cases?
I believe I was actually in a meeting on this today. So they review cases as they come up. So they get a monthly report of all cases that have expired. So say I asked them to do a case back in March of 2023. If they did it for 12 months, it would have come up for renewal. They see those, and so they run them like 60 days, I believe, in advance so that they can start the renewal process with the family, so that they can make sure that those renewals go through without a lapse in that Medicaid coverage or the waiver coverage. They are meeting always. I mean, the assignments go out daily. I mean, especially right now, I am sending them multiple assignments every day. And it's not like they just hold them and wait for one central meeting. Those are constantly being worked by a social worker within the Medicaid department.
Okay, we did have another question come in. This refers more to the registry, the end of the registries. So I'm not sure if you'll be able to answer this, but how is the loss of Medicaid with waiver refusal going to work later in the year after DHHS offers Medicaid to everyone on the wait list? Would they have to reapply to get an offer just for Medicaid?
So if somebody currently has an offer, that that stays. Those are all grandfathered in. The people that are on the registry, the offers that currently exist, those aren't going away. Those are staying. When we start becoming Medicaid for everyone, I don't believe an official process has been decided upon that yet, if they will have to go through the SRT to get that Medicaid, or if Medicaid will be given. That's going to be a Medicaid process. And so I know that they are having meetings on it. They are looking at their CMS approval as to what they might be able to write into their waiver to get the authority to open those Medicaid cases for those minors.
That's all the questions for now. Thank you.
All right, well, we will continue and get into the specifics of the family support waiver. So the services on the family support waiver, there's a whole bunch of them, and we're gonna go through all of them. One caveat is that we do still expect people to receive services from schools. People do have to, the Department of Education is responsible really from birth until age 21 for those educational or daytime services. So these services could not take the place or duplicate anything that a child is receiving from school. So our first service, which is also on the CDD and the adult day waiver, is the assistive technology. So this is equipment, products, any assistive technology that is going to help the child's health, welfare, and safety. Again, this is one area where we need to really make sure it's not overlapping schools, because a lot of times the Department of Education does have assistive technology available that they can get to students. So the service coordinator would really just work with them to ensure that the assistive technology is a need above and beyond what they can receive through other funding sources. Child day habilitation. This is also on the comprehensive waiver, and it takes place in a community service or a community setting. And it's really meeting age-appropriate needs of the child. It's looking at the above and beyond, basically, what daycare provides, realizing that, daycares typically only serve children through about 12. Child day habilitation can go beyond that. It can also provide funding for that above daycare. So like parents are expected to cover like routine daycare, but if there's higher needs and the daycare center or the daycare provider needs additional assistance, maybe because they're working with a trach or they have to have some additional medical. So that's child day habilitation. It's that above and beyond daycare, basically. Next, we have community services integration. This is on both of our other DD waivers as well. And this is really to get the child into the community. It's mostly not in the home. And the child, the family is deciding where that child wants to go. Maybe it can assist them to get to the bowling alley. And it is a habilitative service, but maybe they're learning how to talk to the person and order a pop at the bowling alley. Maybe they're learning some other skills, some coordination, some inner social, personal. It can also help with activities of daily living. So there may be some aspect of it that is occurring in the child's home, but most of it is really going to be provided in the community. Then we have day supports. Again, this is on the comprehensive and adult day as well. This is one where typically it's thought of as the school is going to be providing the bulk of this. But during the summer, when school is on break or other school breaks, this may be a service that the student could utilize during those times. We have environmental modification assessment. And this is just the assessment that is done before assistive technology, home modifications, or vehicle modifications can occur. So before any of those three services are billed, the environmental modification assessment is going to determine that the participant has the need and that they need that item to be more independent. Again, for students, the environmental modification assessment is probably going to look at what other resources are available, and is this the correct funding source for that modification or device. Family and peer mentoring. This is a brand new service. So this is not offered on any of our other waivers currently. It is a new service to the family support waiver. It may be available on other waivers in the future, but for now, this is one of those brand new ones. And it is mentors that are providing support to families, to participants. It's going to include education, guidance. I believe Munroe-Meyer is maybe going to be one of our providers of this. I'm not sure where the provider enrollment is on all of that. But this is really just a service where we're providing that additional kind of above and beyond guidance to help families. A big part of this is helping families navigate available resources. So maybe understanding a little bit more what's out there, maybe some specialized navigating. Next, we have family caregiver training. This is similar to that last one. It is also a new service for the family support waiver. And this provides specific training and education to the unpaid caregiver living in the family home. So this can be parents, older siblings perhaps, that are still living in the home. And it helps that unpaid caregiver learn maybe some skills that they need. It might be medical. So if someone, maybe again, using that trach example, maybe they're new to having a trach and the parents need a little bit of training in the medical realm to be able to meet those needs. Family caregiver training could be a possible use for that. In general, training could include just learning about their child's disability. It could be achieving greater independence, confidence, in providing some of that support. It can just be enhancing key parenting strategies. Maybe if there's some behavioral issues and the parent could benefit from some training on that, that would be an option. So anything that family can tie into this training is going to help the caregivers better meet the needs of that child, could fall into this family caregiver training. So home modifications, it's also on actually all 5 or all 4 other waivers. We offer home modifications on all the waivers. So physical adaptations to the home, things like wheelchair ramps, widening doorways, anything that is going to help that participant, the child, stay safer, anything that is going to help them be more independent and have better access to that home. Homemaker. This is available also on the comprehensive waiver. Regardless of family support or comprehensive, it is only available when the participant is under the age of 18. So even though the family support waiver goes to the age of 21, Homemaker is available birth to 18. Homemaker is like a temporary service. It's short term. So we expect the parents to be their homemakers in the home the majority of the time. But an example would be perhaps the parent has surgery and they can't keep up with some of those homekeeping tasks, cooking, cleaning. Homemaker can then come in and provide funding for someone to come in and do that service that the parent is currently unable to do. And this one does not include any supervision or care of the child. It's just simply the homemaking. Independent living. This one is for participants 19 and over. So again, this is on all of our developmental disabilities waivers. And it is provided when the participant lives in their own home. So while the family support waiver is intended to keep families together, we do know that some people may want to move out of their family home before they turn 21. And they would still be on the family support waiver. They could utilize this independent living, living outside of that family home then on their own. Personal emergency response system. This is another one that is on all 5 of the waivers. And it's an electronic device. It's that I'm fallen and I can't get up button. It allows the person to call for that emergency service that they need. Respite, another service that is on all of our waivers. This, for the family support waiver, is limited to 240 hours per year. Each of our waivers has a limit on it. Respite is a short-term temporary relief to the unpaid caregiver. So it cannot be used for the parent to go to work or for the parent to take classes, but it can be used for the parents to go out on a date once in a while. It's really to help the parents get a little bit of like me time and relief from their usual duties. Supported family living. It's really the same service as that independent living, but it is provided in the family home. So now the person is still living at their family home, and someone is coming in to help them maybe learn how to use the washing machine, learn some of the cooking skills. Transportation. Purpose of transportation is to help people access the community. This is really one where if the person has natural supports, that should probably be the go-to. There's not a ton of transportation-only providers, but we do have transportation funding available. Vehicle modifications, again, it's available on every waiver, and it's adaptations to the family's vehicle that is owned or leased by that family, so that they can provide transportation to the child. So again, maybe if the child is in a wheelchair and the family van needs a lift, vehicle modifications could assist with that. Any questions on the service array?
Yes, we've had some questions coming in. First of all, for that caregiver training and the family and peer mentoring, do the providers of that service have to be a Medicaid approved provider?
Yes, I believe so. Until we have the fiscal intermediary set up, all of our providers do have to be Medicaid enrolled.
Okay. And for the home modifications, who determines what's necessary? If a family is wanting maybe an accessible shower, how does that process, or who determines that?
So the service coordinator will like initiate the process. That environmental modification assessment will determine, and I am not sure exactly who it is that is providing that assessment. I don't know if Kathy, if you know, but we, yeah,
I
someone
just
comes
ran,
out.
yeah, I just ran across one a couple of weeks ago and it just went right out of my head. We had a request for one and a couple of us were putting our heads together to remember which firm did that. And it just went right out of my head.
Yeah, I know we do work with, I think the league can do it, the League of Human Dignity. Typically it is assistive technology partnership, ATP, is the main provider of those, the environmental modification surveys, I believe.
Okay.
But the
That's
service
who we-
coordinator will work with the team.
Yeah. Just in previous experience with other waivers, it was ATP, and then they may have contracted work to be done by other entities.
Yeah, I believe ATP is the primary provider.
Okay, and then on the child day hab service, would this be paying for the daycare or paying to provide extra support in the daycare?
It could, yes. Yeah, again, the daycare provider would have to be a Medicaid provider. And there is a similar service to that on the aged and disabled waiver. So I believe some of those child care providers that are providers for the aged and disabled waiver are looking at providing that service for the family support waiver as well.
Okay, and are there specific times for when a child can access day services? Can it be after 3 p.m.?
I don't know if it can be provided during the school year? That would be a really good question to ask the service coordinator. But yeah, I think the school is responsible for like during the school year. I know it can be used on like spring break and summer break. I don't think it can be used like during that school year when school's in session.
I think I've read somewhere that there is a max of 35 hours per week.
Yes, and that's at any given time. That is the same maximum on our comprehensive and adult day waiver. Any of those, the combined total of day services in any given week would be 35 hours.
Okay, and on the mentoring, who would provide that service? Do you have an example? And what about for parents with more than one child on the family support waiver?
So each child would get the $10,000. Each child would have their own budget. They would each have their own plan. So if there was like a need for some of the mentoring, depending on which child that mentoring was really based on, it would come out of that budget. Again, I'm not sure what providers we have signed up at this point. I believe I had heard that MMI was going to be one of the providers for this, but I know in talking with, I think, both MMI and PTI, there was concern that, well, if we already offer free training, why would we charge the waiver for other training? So I don't know what has been decided for either of those agencies or if we do have anyone signed up as a provider.
Okay. On the A&D waiver, family members can be paid to care for a child while both parents work. Can a family member care for a child on the family support waiver while families work?
Not a legally responsible family member. Any family member who is not legally responsible, so like a sibling that is 19 or over, or like an aunt or an uncle, they could sign up to be an independent provider. And then yes, they could provide services, but they would need to be that Medicaid provider.
Okay, and as far as the supported family living, is there a max number of hours for a day? Can it be done on the weekends?
There are no limitations other than the $10,000 budget.
Okay. Does MMI recreational therapy camps, the summer weekend camps during school time, qualify to be used for respite hours?
That would be a question for MMI. I don't know if you're a respite provider.
I believe we
Yes.
are. Yes.
Yes, we are. Mhm.
Yes, I know there are some camps that are respite providers.
Mhm.
I don't have a list.
That is all of the questions we have for right now.
Okay, well then, Kathy, I think you will probably take the lead on most of this next section. We have started making the initial offers. Again, the bill was written and the law is written that it will serve 850 people. There is some talk that perhaps one of the changes as we try to eliminate the wait list will be that we will want this to offer services to more than 850 people. 850 people does not cover everybody currently waiting for services that meet the requirements of the family support waiver. But as of today, it serves 850 people. We are making offers in rounds. So in March, we made 150 offers. In April, we made 150 offers. Now we're in May. And Kathy, I'll kind of let you talk about this a little bit more.
Sure. So in May, we're going to make 175 offers, and those are going to be going out next week, starting on Monday, the 20th. Then in June, we'll make also 175 offers. July, we'll make 150, and then in August, we will finish up with 50 offers. And so the way it is set up right now, we have made the priority 1 offers, except for those that may just recently came in that are newly eligible. Those would be sitting out there. And as we get people that decline, then we will go back and pull priority ones off of the list and start sending out them offers as well. So we have made the priority one offers. We are making we've made the, oh, where'd my thing go? There it is. We have made the priority two offers and almost all of the priority three offers. So next week, when I start making the offers for the next 175, I will cover the priority fours and start on the priority fives. Of course, they start again with your date of application. So we're going to start with the oldest date of application and come forward as we look at each one of those priorities. But we are getting those that met the priority 1 through 4. Those are almost all sent out at this point, except, like I said, for those that are newly eligible. And we will cover those as well. As we get through offers and we look at people that have declined and the large number, because we do have to bring 850, not just make 850 offers, we bring 850 people that are actually being served. So we will start using the ones that have declined. They wanted to stay on aged and disabled waiver maybe or something, and then we will go back and make those newly eligible priority ones their offers as well. And so then they are based on these 5 priorities. So, you know, it's kind of goes like the wait list. You know, we had our different priorities that we had, and then priority 5 or 6 was everybody that was just date of application. So the priority 1 is the children with the disabilities that are in crisis situations. Now, this isn't maybe just somebody that scratches themselves occasionally, but we are looking for somebody that can do self-harm, can do harm to others. They are at a risk. And so those are in the priority 1 classifications. Priority 2 would be those who, you know, they may have a risk of being, you know, to a detention center, or maybe have to go under the control of a CFS. Those are going to fall into your priority 2 categories. Priority 3, we do have some children out there who are being cared for by elderly grandparents. There's no one else that can provide the care for them. So we do want to make sure that they get some services within that home to, you know, relieve the tasks that the grandparents are assuming. And then priority 4 would fall for those families who do have more than one child that have a disability. So that's going to rely back on the question that was for Joyful. If you have like maybe a brother and a sister that are in the same home, they will they are considered separate. They're not together, but they would fall under that priority 4 classification. And then everybody else who does not meet one of those first 4 is going to go under priority 5. And these are based on those surveys that we sent out to families. They went out last July, and then we set a second round of them out in October, getting a response from people as to what their needs are. And then we set their classification based on those needs. And now when a person is newly eligible, or they file a DD application and it goes to our eligibility unit, that family support questionnaire, that survey, is part of that application process. So when someone is newly eligible, we are asking these same questions on that survey to determine, so we can determine right away what priority classification that they fall into. So what is mailed out is the actual offer letter itself, where they can accept or decline, and then our consent for waiver is attached. There is no respondent sheet that you may have heard about or talked about with the day waiver or the comprehensive waiver, because there is not an ICAP that has to be determined for the budget on family support waivers. It's strictly that 10,000 budget. And the individual or their legal representative must complete and return this paper. It must be signed either by the individual or their legal representative. So if the individual has a guardianship under another party, then that guardian has to sign the paperwork for them. Otherwise, the parent or the legal representative can make sure that that's done. If we don't get a response, which unfortunately is happening, then we do a follow-up phone call or an email to try and reach out to the family. If we can't get any success there, then we will send out a second round of a letter. And this is a really good point that Joyful has on here, because I get this question a lot. If they accept the family support waiver, it doesn't affect anything about their registry. I mean, they're still going to keep their spot on that registry. They still have their date of application. They'll still be able to move into a day waiver when they reach that 21 age and transition out of school. I've had some people under the impression that if they accept this, that they're done. You know, they can't get anything else, or if they decline this, that they're removed from everything. And that is not the way it is. Yeah, you can decline the family support waiver. I have a number of people that do decline to remain on the aged and disabled waiver because you cannot receive 2 waiver services at the same time. But it doesn't affect everything. They just continue on as they have been. This is just a you know, a service chance for some services in the home for those family children. Oh, and those were those 2 other points. So once they accept the family support waiver, so there is a little bit of a process that happens. This is where that SRT is going to come in. So if I get the paperwork back and the family has accepted it, but they do not have Medicaid, first of all, I check. And when I send out offer letters to those families who do not have some type of Medicaid, if they don't have a subadopt, a subguardian, a Magi child, any type of Medicaid, I put a note on their offer letter to please fill out a Medicaid application. Because in order for the state review team to do that disability evaluation, we have to have an active Medicaid application. I mean, and they call active anything that is less than 90 days old, which, I mean, families have been being great about it. I see the paperwork come back in and that application is just sitting there waiting for me. So when I get the paperwork back and it's been accepted, I contact Medicaid and ask them to start the state review process for that individual. Once that's completed, they notify me. Then I send the whole package off to a service coordinator to start working on bringing them into services. We do use service coordinators. We try to use them, which are in the area that the individual lives. If they have a special request, if say maybe they want to get, they have maybe dad lives somewhere, mom lives somewhere else, you know, that can certainly work out about the service coordinator. Service coordinators can be changed. I mean, if a service coordinator is assigned and there needs to be assigned somewhere else, or the family's getting ready to relocate or something, those requests can be made. It's not set in stone. So those can certainly be completed. And the first thing they're going to do is that service coordinator is going to reach out. They're going to contact the person who signed that form by that phone number that's on that first page. And they're going to set up a meeting, kind of introduce themselves, answer any basic questions that they may have, you know, set up a meet and greet type. They can set them up wherever. I mean, we've had some people meet at a Burger King or a McDonald's if they're not happy, or if they're not comfortable at first meeting someone in their family home, that's perfectly fine. But that service coordinator is like your right-hand person. They're going to be there to support what that participant needs. They will help you look at the services, what services that individual is interested in, and then help you find a provider to provide that service for the individual. One of the great things that they do is they attend the IEP, the MDTs at the school. So they can work as a buffer kind of between the school and the family. We all would love to know that the schools and the families are all working 100% together, but we know that sometimes there is a clash or a difference of opinion. And we have had cases where those service coordinators have just worked wonderful as a buffer in between the two. So it's a very successful meeting. And once again, as Joyful had mentioned earlier, the family support services should not overlap school services because Department of Education is still responsible for those. And any habilitation services should complement what the learning is going on at the school. It should not be something separate from it or take away from that. It should be a complementary service to continue with that process. And so then the service coordinator, you know, it is their task to oversee and monitor all waiver services to make sure that they are being used and accessed in the way that they should be. And we do have that requirement where a waiver service does need to be used every 60 days. 60 or 90, Joyful? It's 60, isn't it?
It depends on which waiver.
Yeah, I guess.
And there's also discussion that service coordination is kind of a waiver service.
Yeah.
So I don't, and again, with the budget of the 10,000 on the family support waiver, I believe for the family support waiver, service coordination is going to be included as a service, because with that budget, it's going to be very likely that you will run out before the annual year. And then what would happen if you didn't use a service?
Yep.
So
That's a
yeah, the
great
service
point.
coordinator has at least monthly contact, and that I believe will be considered as a service with that lower budget. So the service coordinator is going to use tools called Charting the Life Course. It is what the state uses for person-centered planning. And these plans will help people and families decide what really are their goals. What is it they're looking for services to provide to them? How can natural supports also wrap around services? So that's really going to be like what the team is doing. The team is going to be whomever the family wants. The participant has to be involved. Guardians, legally responsible people need to be involved. Ideally, teachers. It's not uncommon for the IEP and the ISP, which is our person-centered plan, to be held in conjunction. It might be a little bit longer of a meeting, but if you have everybody at the table and can get 2 forms filled out at the same time, everybody can be on that same page. So whomever's providing services does need to be at the meeting. So your independent or agency providers. Obviously, if you're using like the mentoring or the teaching, some assisted technology, some of those kind of like one-time services, you know, the person who modified your van's probably not going to be at your meeting, but providers that are like providing those ongoing habilitative services would be. So all of the services are really going to be based on what that person, that child, the family want and need. And I'm just going to do the resources real quick, and then we can go back to questions because this is just a one-page thing. So on our website, we do have 3 documents specific to the family support waiver. You'll see on the far left of the screen, we have this family support waiver one-pager. I believe Kathy sends that with that offer letter, so that when they get the offer letter, they can read this one-pager and see what it is that the family support waiver is. This middle is a trifold, and it's just an overview. It talks about the eligibility requirements. It has those funding priorities for the grandparents, self-harm, those 1 through 5 priorities. And then in the middle of it, you'll see that there's a flow chart on what to expect when you are made an offer and what it looks like to begin services. On the far right is a services quick guide. And that is specific to the family support waiver. It just has like paragraph descriptions of each of those services we went over today. So it's just a very like quick thing for families to look at and start saying, well, what types of services do I want? The service coordinator will have much larger definitions and information on each of those services, but the quick guide is kind of your short menu description that you can use to determine which ones you want to dig deeper into. And then we just have that contact information. So like if you have questions about the registry, you have questions about, you know, if you're already waiting for services, if you think you got a family support offer and you're not sure, if you have questions about it, those are some of our contact information. But what questions do you have?
Okay, we've got a few here. How I know we're going to cover this in tomorrow's presentation, but how does a family apply for the family support waiver? And when should families apply? At what stage of life?
So basically, you don't apply for the family support waiver. It's just one of our waivers. So all you have to do is fill out the DD application and go through the eligibility process. Once you've done that, then you are put on the list for the family support, the day waiver, and the comprehensive waiver. It's just one of our new waivers that so there's no separate application for it or anything. Those that have already been found DD eligible and are on the registry waiting, they are automatically qualify for the family support waiver as well.
If they're under 21 years of age.
Correct.
So what age should or when should families apply for that?
I always tell people to apply as soon as you have a diagnosis. We don't actually look at those 3 areas of limitation until someone turns 9. So if you're applying for someone who is 7, we are only looking for the diagnosis from that doctor or medical professional. We do look at the limitations at the ages of 9, and then we relook at limitations at 18. We really say we're looking at eligibility in general, but that diagnosis, we don't expect it to ever change. If you're diagnosed with autism, you're going to have that same diagnosis 10 years later. Those diagnoses don't really change. But yeah, as soon as you have a diagnosis, apply. We do have people that have applied for infants.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So who and or how is the determination made on what the family's budget is spent on?
That's going to
That
be
is-
go ahead, Joyful.
I was just saying that is completely up to the participant, the family. They're going to work with their service coordinator. The service coordinator will have all of the rates for different services. I'm not really sure on how rates are determined for some of those new services that are like the training, the mentoring. I'm not sure what the rates look like on that. I believe they are on our rate chart on the website, but I think it's like a cap of like 500 for the service or something. So I'm not quite sure on how to respond to those rates, but otherwise, how to use that budget and what that looks like is just a conversation the service coordinator will have with the family. They'll know how much respite providers are paid if that's what the family wants to look at. You know, if they really have a need for a home modification, we do have some caps on how much money you can spend on home modifications, but the service coordinator will know all of those and talk that through with the family.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and when you were discussing the families need to apply for Medicaid, is there anything in particular that families need to mention or need to say when they contact Medicaid or when they're applying to let Medicaid know that it's for a waiver and not straight Medicaid?
Well, I mean, not really. They can, if there's a place for a comment section or something, they can certainly put apply for family support. I have a contact that I send all of my SRT requests to, and I always tell them that the like Kathy Arns has accepted a family support waiver and will need SRT completed. And then if there is some type of Medicaid, like a subadopt or a Magi child, I always let them know as that as well. Or if there's a brand new Medicaid application, I let them know that also. So when that application comes in, and I have had some families panic because they did that Medicaid application right away when they got the family support waiver, and then we had to wait for snail mail to get it back to me. And so within that time, Medicaid had been quick, and they looked at the application and said, oh, wait, they don't meet the income guidelines. And they got a denial notice. That's fine. That's going to happen. As long as that application is there and it's not older than 90 days, my contact at Medicaid is going to open it back up and know that they are looking for, that they applied it solely because they have accepted a family support waiver offer.
Okay. What if a family takes the family support waiver and it's not a good fit? Can they switch to another waiver?
Well, that would be if another waiver was available for them at the time. So I have had some people that have accepted the family support waiver, and once they had that initial conversation with the service coordinator and they looked everything through, they just decided it was not something that was going to meet their needs, or maybe they didn't have a need for it, but they got something from the state, so they were very excited, and that's going to happen. It's perfectly fine for them to then tell that service coordinator this is something that we're not interested in, or they can contact me and I can just, put that down, and then they will just remain, for the time being, they will just remain on that wait list for another offer to become available for them.
Okay, that is all of the questions that we have in the Q&A right now. If anybody has, we have time. So if anybody has any questions and would like to unmute and ask, we've got a few minutes here. Now's your chance. Okay,
Jennifer?
yes.
Yeah, this is Sue Hamilton. Hey, I'm just going to ask a really quick question. When you guys were referring to the application, the application is kind of inclusive in that when you fill out the application for either the TBI, the DD waiver, or the A&D waiver, there isn't an option to fill out just for the family support waiver. So is it okay if families
That is
just leave it?
correct.
Is that okay
It's
just to leave it open?
You're filling out the developmental disabilities.
Okay.
There's 3 check marks. The developmental disabilities includes the family support waiver. And I think we're working on having it like updated so that in parentheses it'll say it includes the family support waiver, but the developmental disabilities box is for all 3 DD waivers.
Okay, perfect. Okay, just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
We did have a question come in on the chat. My son was offered the family support waiver, and we are working on getting the medical and educational documentation to support his diagnosis for the SRT. What all documents do you recommend we include?
Well, Medicaid is specifically going to ask what they want in that they call a communication a VR. So a VR request that they had sent, or verification request that they've sent to the family, they're specifically going to say what they're going to be looking for is anything that substantiates the disability for the child. So mainly that's going to be medical documentation that shows that they meet the requirement. I guess, if you really wanted to, you might be able to get on the Social Security website, ssa.ne.gov, I think it is. And they may have a list of criteria of what they're looking for, because our state review team basically mimics the Social Security guidelines of what they're looking at to determine a disability.
Anybody else want to unmute themselves and ask while they have the opportunity?
Hi, this is Kim Falk. I also have a quick question. You mentioned, the respite funding, was just limited to the $10,000. Is there any limit to hourly rates you can pay respite providers?
There are rates, and they are posted on our website on the provider
Okay.
page.
Okay, I noticed that.
I don't have them memorized, but yeah, we do have our provider rates on our provider page.
Okay. Thank you. I knew other waivers did have some,
Right.
so I was curious.
Yeah, we do have, and one of the things we are looking at long term is, we oversee all 5 waivers. They all have respite as a component, and they have some different rates. The DD, all 3 DD waivers will have the same rates for respite, but the TBI and the AD waiver have different rates, I believe. Additionally, we oversee lifespan respite and MHCP respite, and they have different rates as well. So I think long term, we're hoping to kind of even out those respite rates across the board, because you can't only have it from one source. But yeah.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, last call.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, this is Lori. If I have a child who is turning 19 in September, would you or do you recommend applying for Medicaid before she turns that age? Or should I wait until she is 19 to apply, and then hopefully a waiver will be available sometime in the future and it's ready to go? What would you recommend?
I recommend you wait until her 19th birthday. If
Okay.
you apply, in the state of Nebraska, they are considered a legal adult on their 19th birthday. So if you apply even the day before that, they're going to look at family income. So if you apply on her 19th birthday or after, they will look only at that individual's resources. Family income will not come into play at that point.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Everybody's quiet. I think that means we are all experts now on the family support waiver. No more questions. Thank you so much, Joyful and Kathy, for presenting for us again. We appreciate it so much. Again, if you guys have any questions, reach out to me. And if you have specific questions for Joyful or Kathy, I can forward them on to them. And again, if you would please fill out the survey that will pop up in your browser when you leave the webinar, we would appreciate it. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for the
Thank you for the
opportunity.
presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.